Sims, let's go.
It's your girl Miracle Sims, and you're watching the GSL Talk Show. Tonight we're going to be chatting with Miss Yvette Walker, and she's an amazing author and podcaster and much, much more. So stay tuned.
That I'm not the type of girl that goes. Yeah, it's a miracle, baby. Wishing I would have a one night affair.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSL Talk Show. As you can see, I'm here with Miss Yvette Walker. How you doing this? I'm about to say this morning. Look, it's evening in this recording.
I am doing very well and happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Yes, well, I'm glad to have you here too. Look, I love that your title there says Yvette Walker of Positively Joy, because I mean, I feel like there's joy exuding from you and your smile and everything like that. So welcome.
Oh, thank
welcome
you. Thank you. And there's a funny name. There's a funny story behind that name that we can talk about later.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Would love to hear all about it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, let's start us off with where you are, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I am in Kansas City, Missouri, and I just moved here from Oklahoma. I lived in Oklahoma for almost 20 years, just came here for a new position. And so it's, my first Christmas. I know this is going to be in the future, but it's spending my first Christmas here in Kansas City. So yeah, no, it's been really good. I'm married to a wonderful man who picked up and left his job for me. So appreciate that. And and I'm a journalist. I'm a full-time journalist. I have been for a while. I've also been an educator. I'm originally from Chicago, and I am host of a podcast called Positively Joy.
Awesome. Look, we got a lot to talk about then.
Yes.
Stuff to talk about. What's first, shout out to that husband. Look, those husbands come in handy every now and then. I say that.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Shout out to him for moving with you and things of that nature. Yeah, I would love to hear about all the things you just shared, because honestly, I know we all hear things about Chicago. So,
yeah, you know what? And I haven't lived there in quite a while, but it's still hometown for me. And yeah, there's a lot of negativity going on there right now, a lot of violence, and I'm really so sorry to see that. But growing up in Chicago, we were a community. It was a beautiful time. I mean, Chicago's always had some problems. It's any big city does, right? But the way I remember it, and I lived there for really all my formative years, and I really only moved away once I started working, as a journalist, and so that would have been in my 20s. So I was there my first 20 years and loved it. But yeah, there's some problems right now. But again, any big city does have problems.
Yeah. It's definitely sad to hear. I know they say things like Iraq. I've never been there. I haven't been there yet or anything, but and I hate to have preconceived notions about a place, right? Because
I know, yeah,
like New York and stuff. And when I went up there, and I kind of, was going along with the vibe, like, okay, let me go get on the subway, let me go. I didn't feel like my first time going to New York, I was by myself, and so I did kind of feel like, let me make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, because I'm a girl from the South by myself. It was like, I didn't want to do too much. But the next few times that I went, it just kind of was like, okay, I was in a position where I had to go and I had to be by myself, and I had to like get on the subway and all this type of stuff. So I was following my GPS and stuff, but for the most part, it felt comfortable. It didn't feel like, I didn't feel bad or feel like scared or anything, but I get it. Again, like you say, cities have this. I mean, all of them do and stuff.
Yeah,
so I guess well, with that being said, I know you did kind of already address that, there are things that are happening, but is it really as bad as the media telling us? Or
so I still have some family members. I don't have a lot of family members left there, but I still have some family members who it depends on where you live. I mean, let's be honest, it depends on where you live. And I do have a family member who lives in a more troublesome neighborhood. And then I have family members who live in a neighborhood that's a little bit less concerned with those kind of issues, but everybody all lives together, and everyone has
Mm,
to, like if you go downtown, I mean, everyone's gonna, experience it all at some point. So,
mhm.
um, I mean, and I've read the news reports. So yes,
Yeah.
and sometimes it is as bad as it's portrayed to be, but then
Mm,
sometimes, it's not, and people still have that spirit of
mm,
community in a lot of different places. So I would say kind of yes and no. It can be,
yeah.
what we see on the streaming services.
Got you. I understand.
Mhm.
Well, we pray for Chicago, man. We pray that,
Yeah.
things
Yeah,
get
we
better
do.
and that people can, truly be that community and family again. And why don't we just look at each other as just we're all family, man. We're all
Yeah.
humans. Let's just stop. Like, but anyway, that's a whole
Yeah.
nother.
I know
Let's get more about
that's a
you.
whole nother episode, right? Yes.
Right. That's the
Yes.
episode all by itself.
That's right.
So Miss Yvette, so how is there a culture shock with where you are now? Like, going from there to where you are, like what was that like and what's the yeah, just share with us what would that look
Yeah.
like in your life and
Well, so as a journalist, you can move around a lot. And so I've
mm,
originally from Chicago. I have worked in Indiana, in Texas,
okay.
in Missouri,
Mm,
in Oklahoma, and even like several places within those states. So I've lived and worked in lots of different places. And I was
got
actually in Kansas City before I went to Oklahoma. So I was in
mm,
Kansas City for about 10 years and went to Oklahoma, where I was both a journalist and an educator during that span of almost 20 years. And I felt God called me back for kind of a different position, back to
mhm,
full-time journalism, which was, I will say, which was a kind of a decision in itself, because I was in academia. I was an assistant dean at a journalism college, which was great. I felt like I was contributing to the young minds and contributing to the next generation of journalists. I think journalism is important. I always have. It's important to our democracy. It's important to let people know what's going on, to keep our
mhm.
leaders, on point. And
Accountable.
but I had been away because I was teaching, but now I'm an opinion editor and I get a
Mm,
chance to have an opinion, which I am really enjoying. And
awesome.
when I was making that shift, I said, I'm comfortable here. I could probably be here till I retire. But
Mm,
that phrase in Esther, for such a time as this, I felt that call. And I really
mm,
felt the Lord kind of smoothing the path for me. I
mm,
got here pretty quickly.
mhm.
Excuse me.
It's
And
okay.
so, yeah, I think that because I had lived here before, it wasn't as much of a culture shock. Now, my husband, yes,
Mm,
he's an Oklahoma boy, so definitely.
okay. Got you, got you. Oh man. Okay. Well, before we get into, 'cause I know we got to hear all about the husband. We got to hear about all this other stuff going on too. But I was just thinking, it seems like these are two controversial careers that you've had because I hear things about the school and academics and things like it sounds like you more so was in collegiate. Am I wrong there?
Yes, yes, uh-huh.
Okay. So, but even still with college, I mean, I hear there's still some stuff going on in the college system too. So, I mean, I feel like, and then of course we know that media has this rep right now and stuff is whatnot as well. So, how is it being in these two controversial fields? And do you see the controversy in them? As somebody that has been both, in them and can
Oh,
see it from the
sure.
outside as well.
Yeah, yeah. I
Mm,
mean, I was in academia during COVID. I mean, there's been a
mm,
lot of change.
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of frustrations
I'm sure.
on college campuses.
Mm,
There are people who believe that students should have a chance to fully experience and say what they think and
mm,
be able to protest and all those things. And there are people who feel like it's just getting too wild now. There are people who feel like there shouldn't be that much.
mm,
And so there's that. And then there are people who realize that bouncing back from the kind of way we educated during COVID has been a real struggle. And that's in all the school systems, right?
mm,
But just getting back to that and having but students are very flexible. They bounce back, right? But
mhm.
but definitely that semester or two right after they got back to campus, I could see a real difference that, you know, they had lost something. Even though we were still online, I definitely could see they had kind of lost that in-person, hands-on type of education. So, you know, we went back as early as we could. There were some people, some campuses, I think, who stayed out a little bit, but we went back as early as we could, took all the precautions, had to measure the 6 feet seats, you know, the whole, you know, seats away from each other and have the glass partitions up. But we just felt that it was important to get those students back in person. And I definitely saw that. But I think, you know, now we have some years later, I think it's getting better, and we're seeing what we are seeing, and I'm using present tense, even though I'm not there anymore. What we are seeing is we're seeing those high school students now that were suffering from COVID education. And I don't want to say that because we blamed education. It was what was happening. So we had to do something, right? But we have those high school students now who are coming to college. And that's kind of a different thing, because I do feel just like our college students miss that in-person hands-on education, so do those high school students. So now they're coming to college. They're going to have to knuckle down. They're going to have to, you know, work maybe even a little bit harder than they might have had to, you know, coming to college if this had not happened. So again, we have a whole generation coming through now, and it's going to be challenging. But yeah, so there's that. On the journalism side, journalism's always been controversial, but the reason why I got into it and the reason why I feel like it's so important is because there's people living their lives. Everybody doesn't have the time to do what we do. You know, there are laws that allow people to, for example, go to public meetings and view public documents. But I mean, who has time to do that? And a lot of people don't know how to do that. So we do that for you. We let you know, what are these you know, city leaders or school district leaders, you know, what are they talking about in the meetings? And what are they talking about in these documents? And what's going on? What is included in these police reports? That kind of information that we have access to, that, by the way, you have access to as well. But again, who has time? You know, we get that for you and we let you know what's going on. And, you know, there's so many reasons why that's important. And I would say number one is an issue of trust. Trust has eroded between the police and communities. Trust has eroded between our leaders and communities. And so we have to kind of let you guys know, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. It's up to you to care. It's up to you to read online or still in print or watch TV or listen to radio or podcasts. But, you know, we can get you that information to keep you informed. You know, you got to make a decision, especially we're coming into 2024, and it's not just the president, it's the local races as well. And you have to know what's going on. So yes, it's controversial. Yes, some people don't like us, but it's important.
It is. I mean, honestly, yeah, both positions are definitely important, because again, the teachers, they're teaching the future generations, and from what I'm hearing, it sounds like things are just so different from when I was in school. Like I graduated in 2004, and you know, I went to college, I did all this stuff, and it wasn't a bad or horrible experience from what I remember, and I don't remember too much personal opinion, but then again, maybe it was. Who knows? But there's a lot of that I'm hearing about schools, and then when it comes to the whole media thing, again, there is a distrust when it comes to media and stuff. And just in general, not only just on the journalism side as well, but just everything. And so, well, you've held some important positions here. I mean, you know, thank God for you. I pray that, you know, at least people that truly have the people's best interest in mind. Like, it's great for those type of people to be in the positions.
And trust me, we care. We would not be in this position. There's other things to do, right? For people who really are in, I would say, both positions, teaching and in journalism, you really have to have some kind of a calling. You know, it can be an enjoyable, as I enjoyed it, it can be an enjoyable time, but it's stressful. And, you know, and it's hard work. And so there's other things that people could be doing. So I really, if nothing else, the folks who do this, they really care. They care about the people that they're serving. The educators
Mhm.
care about their students, and the journalists actually care about you, although it may not seem like it, but it's true, or else we wouldn't be doing this.
Yes, yes. Oh, again, I know we can go on and on about that. But I mean, I believe you want to tell us a little bit about, the married life. And people know I love to, give shout out to the kingdom marriages or people that are happy and stuff like that. Because we see what look all over what social media.
Yeah.
And you don't see happy people. It depends on who you're following, right? So if you're following the right type of people, then you might see happiness, you might see thriving marriages, you might see beautiful families, you might see all of that, right? But then on the flip side, more likely than not, you see the downside of men, marriage, and all of this type of stuff. So it seems
You're
to me
definitely going to see that on TV for sure. Yeah.
So it sounds like you got some good news for us today and everything like that. So feel free to go ahead and tell us about that husband and what else is going on.
Well, I have to say that everything that's happening now. So let's say from 2015, because I met my husband Tim in 2015 on Good Friday. We met on Good Friday and we got married on Good Friday. And a lot of people are like, "That's weird. Why'd you get married on Good Friday? That's not like a day." People would say this. It's not like a day of happiness or love. And I'm like, excuse me, that's the ultimate love and sacrifice on Good Friday. So it is a wonderful day to get married, right? Yeah.
Right.
So we did do that. But during that time, I really do believe that God delivered this man to me. And I also had kind of what I call a breakthrough in my relationship with God also during this time around 2019 and just before the pandemic. And I will go backwards just a little bit. The reason why that's so important is because I did have a failed marriage. I had a failed marriage like a lot of people do. And it was a difficult time. I was married to an individual with bipolar disorder. Which means he was in a depressed state. I didn't know this when we married. A lot of fatigue, a lot of depression. We both thought that he had Epstein-Barr syndrome, which is the chronic fatigue syndrome, but it turns out he had bipolar disorder too. And that is a real diagnosis, and I don't blame him at all, but it was just very difficult. And in the end, there were some behavior issues that can happen with this particular disorder that I just couldn't deal with anymore. And so, so we got divorced, and I felt, for a long time that it was my fault for not being able to keep that marriage together, because it was a Christian marriage. And, there was some differences in the faith though. And I will say, and your audience probably knows the phrase equally yoked. And so I will say there was some faith differences in the marriage, which I think that you have got to find someone who shares your faith. You simply do. You can think you can go into a relationship where someone believes, in something, but if they don't really share your faith, they're not going to go to church with you every Sunday, which is a requirement for me. They're not, and I would even say that during this time, and I mentioned this before the show, that during this time of his depression, and then I felt like maybe I was going into a little bit of depression, I didn't really lean on the Lord like I should have at this time. And I can only say this now because from where I am today and looking back, I know I didn't. I mean, did I still go to church? Absolutely. Every Sunday. Did I pray? Yes. But I didn't understand how that trust we can give over to him. And I didn't understand how we can cast our anxieties on him. Things that we read in the Bible, which I believe to be true. So the marriage failed. And then I was alone for many years. And there was even a time when I just really kind of broke down crying one night. And I feel like through a song, I feel like I heard from the Lord to say, I love you. You don't have to be afraid about being alone. You don't have to be afraid about not being loved, because I love you. So I kind of went during a time where I didn't date. I just focused on my relationship with the Lord. And then when he gave me the A-OK to start dating again in my spirit, I dated 3 guys, and Tim was number 3. And I knew he was the one. I knew he was the one from date number 2. I just knew that the Lord had delivered him to me. And it took him about a year to figure that out, but that's okay. And like I said, we got married on Good Friday in 2017. And
Okay.
yeah, no, he's a manly, a godly man. He's manly too, true, but he's a godly man. You know, I have a picture of him in bed falling. He has fallen asleep and the Bible's on his chest. It's my favorite picture. I just love that picture. It's so cute. He's like, what are you doing? But yeah, so I would just say that if your faith doesn't match, it's going to be a problem, because when you do go through problems, you just don't have the same thing to lean on. And I can
Mhm,
recognize that
mhm,
now. I didn't realize that at the time. So
mhm,
once all this stuff started happening, we were at church one time, and I just was overcome with emotion, and I was just really, I started crying. And when we left, he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, I'm sad because I feel like I can't hear from God, like I used to when I was a little girl. I was raised
mhm,
Catholic, and I felt like, I was in church a lot. And I just felt like, as children can sometimes, there's the veil is thinner, I think,
mhm,
when you're a kid. And
mhm,
then he said something so profound. He said, "Well, don't you think you just did? Like, don't you think you just heard from him?" And so when he
mhm,
said that, I started kind of going through this kind of a seeking process. I always been a believer, but I decided,
mhm,
no, I'm gonna seek more the Lord. I want to get closer. I want to make that relationship closer. I want to see what that's like. So I went to a retreat where I felt like I had a breakthrough. I came back from this retreat. I started writing like crazy. I've always been a writer, but I started writing
mhm,
for him, in his honor, in his glory. That turned into a
mhm.
couple of books that I have. I write Christian song lyrics now. I never used to do that. And so,
Oh,
and then the podcast came out during the pandemic in May of 2020. And the funny story behind the name Positively Joy. So I
mhm,
was gonna start the podcast on hair and beauty. That was what it was gonna be
mhm.
on. And I
Okay.
heard distinctly in my spirit, no, it's going to be on joy. And, being
Yes.
obedient, I'm like, okay, Lord, I don't know what you're
Mhm,
talking about, but we're going to try something. And if you go back to the very first episode, you will hear me say, "Welcome to the Finding Joy podcast." Because I didn't know what I was doing. I just picked a name, right? But then I
mhm.
realized there's a million podcasts with some kind of iteration of that name. And I said, "Lord, we're going to have to get a new name." And he said, "Positively Joy." And I'm a bit of a
Yes.
word nerd. And I said out loud, I was like, "Lord, that's grammatically incorrect. We can't use that." And I really did. This is a true story.
Mhm,
And then I heard him say what I say. It's going to be Positively Joy. And so that's what it is.
mhm.
And I tell people there is
Oh,
no way I would have picked that name. There's no way. I mean, there's no way I would have picked the name because, to follow grammar, it would be positively joyful or positively
mm,
joyous. But that's not what I
mm.
heard. And, 3 years later, we're still going strong.
Awesome. Listen, well, GSL was birthed during pandemic as well. April 2020. Look, April 1st, 2020 to be
Oh, wow.
exact. Right. So funny. I was like, but look, God will use the foolish things too.
I mean,
Of all the
he
wise, right?
yes, yes. I mean, he can use anything, right? Yeah. That's what I
Mhm.
believe too.
Yes. And that's an amazing testimony as well, especially when you talked about the former relationship and then the marriage now, and then obviously the things that was birthed after the marriage in
Yep,
regards to your podcast and your books and
absolutely.
everything like that. Look, shout out to you going on that retreat, understanding that you needed some self-care, some
Yep.
time, even if it
Mhm.
was just taking time away to hear from the Lord and whatever. And then obviously, you got what you needed,
Yeah.
telling us about books and things of that nature as well. So, man, again, so many things to discuss there. Because I mean, like first when you're talking about the former marriage, it was kind of making me think about my ex and some stuff I was going through with him. Like it was a mentally and verbally abusive situation.
Mm.
And I think back on it every now and then. I have no idea where I would be today. Like if I was still in that relationship, we probably wouldn't be talking today. Maybe GSL still would have been a thought. Like, I don't know. Like I have no clue. And to be with someone that's completely the opposite in regards to the treatment and the
Yeah.
understanding, all that different type of stuff. It matters, and so And everything that you said is definitely very important, because again, people that are single and stuff, like, I hope you guys took those gems that she
Yeah,
just
it's
shared,
it's
because
really it's true. And I will say this, the Lord will he will make that way. He will make that path because
mm,
um after after we got divorced, about I would say within 5 years later, he died, my ex-husband. And it's weird because I'm
oh,
technically not a widow because we were divorced, but I went to his
mhm,
funeral and I still knew his family. And so I
yeah,
don't know what would have happened. I mean, I don't know what would have happened, but um
mm,
he actually, after, and there is such a thing as enabling, we've heard of that, we've heard that before. So after we
mhm,
divorced, he actually did kind of pick himself up a little bit more than when we were married.
okay,
And because I think that I was out of love, enabling him to perhaps not work as hard on himself as possible. And
mhm,
so again, I think the Lord does smooth the way. I don't know what would have happened if I would have tried to hang on. Would he have
mm,
died anyway? I mean, who knows? But
yeah,
there was a period after that marriage where I can truly say I was fearful. I thought that I'd be alone the rest of my life, and the Lord swooped in and said, "No. And you need to
mm,
just hang out with me for a couple of years. Don't be dating. Hang out with me for a couple of years, and then I'm going to make it even better." And he did. And even after he brought that better person into my life, the better person in turn helped me get even closer to the Lord by revealing, isn't he trying to talk to you? Maybe you should check into that. So, there you go.
yes. I was saying, yes, I totally agree. With everything you just shared there, and again, we don't know what would have happened with the gentleman and whatnot. And I'm sorry to hear that he passed and things like that
Hmm.
as well. Um, but we hope and pray that again that he was able to build his relationship with Christ and whatnot before that happened and things. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you know but even with you sharing what has happened on your journey and everything, like, again, God can give us better and more than we imagine. Like, we think that, oh, I need to hold on to what I have, and we
Yes.
things like that, and he'll show us that, no, you need to trust me, right, with what you have and things like that. So that's what it sounds like has happened with you. I mean, it's happened with me as well, like, similar situation. I mean, I wasn't married to, again, my ex, but still, like, seemed like there was some similarities there in regards to maybe, again, maybe the treatment, or maybe just the understanding between two individuals and things like that. And
Hmm.
it's but anywho.
Well, and
I mean,
when, like I said, when I came back from that retreat, and I started writing, I started exploring that in a book called Whispering in His Ear. And I
mm,
explored a little bit of my fear about not being able to hear from God and what that relationship is like. And so it's a devotional where we look at really kind of looking for God in the everyday, because he's there all around us. And if we only look and
mm,
we read his word, then we can discover him really in any situation. And I
yeah,
know that I wasn't discovering him in that former situation. And so that's why I
mm,
felt that was really important to kind of get that word out. And
mm,
so, and then I've been speaking about joy for the last 3 years. And I said, okay, I've been trying to tell people what this joy thing really is, because over time, remember I told you the Lord told me to talk about joy, and I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Well, he revealed to me over time that there is real joy, and you can find it in John chapter 15 underneath the vine and the branches reference, where he talks about how to find joy. And he says
mm,
you need to abide in the Father's love and do his will, and you will be
mm,
filled with a joy that completes you. See, we're
mm-hmm,
out there
yeah,
chasing joy everywhere. We're chasing people, we're chasing substances. We're trying to find joy where it's just in one place, and it's in our
mm,
it's with our heavenly Father. And so that is the message that he gave me to impart to everybody. And so I've been talking about joy for the last 3 years, and I realized I really haven't given anybody a tool to help them do this. And so I just came out
mm,
with a new book. It's a journal. It's called Journaling His Joy. And it's
mm,
a way for you kind of sit down every day and actually um, with through prompts and through try to get a good it's hard to say sometimes, um, a good way to look at this. You
Mhm.
can read scripture every week. There's a prompt for you to follow. You can kind of check in and see how you're doing, and then there's pages for you to journal. For my
Mhm.
people who like to Bible journal out there, or who even like to color and doodle, there's a lot of people who like to do that. There's some
Mhm.
illustrations in here for you to color. There's room to doodle. It's just all spending time with the Lord through making time for yourself. We already talked about self-care a little bit. So
Mhm.
making time, sit down. Again, every week you have a scripture and a prompt to follow that asks you to find joy in your life. And when you can
Mhm.
sit down and you can actually, chronicle this exploration of finding joy in your life, it's a 6-month journal. And there's
Mhm.
even extra pages in the back. It's really 7 months, but 6 months sounded better. Um,
Mhm.
then you have this to look back on, in difficult times. And so both
Mhm.
are available at Amazon. And I encourage you, especially in the new year and whenever you hear this, take some time definitely for
Mhm.
yourself.
Yes, indeed. I know I'm definitely an advocate for that as well. Again, the whole kicking off GSL was one of the first things I did was start what I just thought it was going to be daily inspiration. And I'm like, okay, this is going to hold me accountable to share and da da da.
Hmm.
And it's turned out to be just this changing thing to, like you said, take time every day because God really is speaking to us, and it just goes over our head. Like He's speaking, He's showing up, He's
Yes, I'm
there,
so glad
and
you said that, because this is what I found. It wasn't that he stopped speaking to me like I thought he had. I thought, well, I'm not worthy enough. He's not speaking to me anymore. Couldn't be further from the truth. I had just forgotten how to listen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm just soaking everything in, even though I feel like there's so many things that we could just keep exploring with, with what you shared. But at the same time, I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a sponge right now. So I'm sorry. My questions are kind of like just, I, you know, because I think I'm somewhat in awe in some ways because I feel like there's some similarities. Because again, I've been on my journey with, daily and whatnot to at least Monday through Saturday be intentional about, you know, I guess hearing from the Lord and then be able to share that and whatnot. Which it seems like you're doing. I don't know if you do it every day when it comes to your podcast. You can tell us more about that and or whatever. But yes, it's just something to it, you guys. Like, I mean, whether you are doing it on the 6 month journey with her journal or just taking time every day to
Mhm.
just study, it just seems like it's just so important that a lot of things hinge on it. Like even when we talked about a minute ago, you were saying about being on the same page with your spouse or significant other if you're still dating and things of that nature. It's like so much hinges on that relationship with God because it's like our
Mhm.
morals, our values, what we do, how we handle it, how we communicate, all that stuff
Mhm.
it plays a part in again what you believe in. So it really just
And
starts there. That's what I'm saying.
it's true. It's true. And this is something I think that couples have a difficult time understanding, but I think I think how can I put this? Tim and I love God more than we love each other.
Mm.
And it was funny, we were talking about our vows, and he said, "Should we put that in the vows?" And I said, "People are not gonna understand." So
Oh,
no.
it ain't
I mean,
about
but I know
them.
I should have, right? I mean, I really should
Yeah.
have, but we did talk about it. We talked about it. But
Mm.
it's true and it's biblical. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think that, young, obviously young couple, and we're an older couple. This is my second marriage, and I got married a little older. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think after a lifetime of experience, it's easier to see that than when you're young and you have that young love going on and it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But both of you need to be on that page, and you need
Mm-hmm.
to God's first, then your relationship, and then
Yes.
your children, and then everything else.
Exactly. Yes,
Mhm.
ma'am. I'm right there with you. Like
Mhm.
and I feel like that's when God brought my my husband as well when I was putting things and things in order. When things were out of order,
Mhm.
nothing worked out, but when I met my, now husband, one of the things that I did or became intentional about was making sure I gave glory and honor to the Lord for him, not being so focused on him and idolizing him and things of that nature, which is probably what I was doing before him, and things.
Exactly. Yeah.
And here we are 7 years of marriage now. And I'm, I would say that's because there's those moments where, you may not like everything your spouse do, and, and all this different type of stuff but you still, I love God and I love what this union that he gave us. So therefore I continue to love you. And you know what I mean? But again, it goes back to, that love of God that has to be there. That has to be, established in order for things to last and everything. So
yeah, absolutely. It'll be 7 years for us next Good Friday. So yeah. And we celebrate the anniversary on whatever day Good Friday falls on. So our anniversary date is the 14th, but we celebrate it whatever day Good Friday falls on.
Oh, I love that for y'all. Don't let nobody take away y'all's joy in regards to y'all, Good Friday wedding, Good Friday marriage. Again, one, it's a beautiful day because it has significance for you guys of when you met.
Oh, yeah.
But, but also, again, what can get better than the reminder of what Christ did for us,
Absolutely.
So, that's, I think is beautiful. Y'all keep that going.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So then the podcast, I know you told us a little bit about it, but what was the inspiration to get that going and things like that? You wrote books and then
yeah, well, as I said, it was going to be on hair and beauty. And I did so it was going to be twice a week at first. And I know this. There's a lot of work that goes into this. And as I could not keep up that pace because I was working full time. So I do it once a week. It's an interview style show, just like this. And so it's once a week. And we talk to people who have found joy in their life, no matter what has happened. So generally I talk to a lot of people who have had some different circumstances go on, trauma or various things, but they found joy in it. So the one that actually is going up this week is on forgiveness, about a woman who's able to forgive her grandmother's killer. And that is tough. I mean, I'd like to say I'd be able to do that, but that is something that she has had to really spend time in her life thinking about. And so and find the joy in it. And find the joy in it, not in the murder, not in that, but in bringing. There was a lot of anger and resentment in her, and she has released all of that, which is just amazing. And the joy in that again is amazing. She changed her whole life.
Yeah, listen, I totally, I'm sure it did. I'm sure.
Yeah.
That is one thing. And see, this is the thing, and we might not like it. This might be what I call Pope on my show when I do daily inspiration. I say the things that we don't like in the Bible or things that we don't understand. I call it Pope because I don't like Pope and juice. And anyway, this may be the Pope in this situation that, Christ forgives us for whatever we do. You know what I'm saying? And if you repent and you come to him and all this different type of stuff. So even those people that do those great evil things like murder and all that stuff, they are forgiven just like us. You know what I'm saying? And that may be hard because we don't want to think like, what about the justice and, and things like that. But I guess the thing is like, we can't minimize like our own sins, right? Because we like to do that. We like to think, okay, well, the murder is worse than what I do. And you know what? Maybe to a certain extent, when it comes to, I guess, directly affecting someone else's life and things like that. But, if again that murderer comes to Christ, he's going to be forgiven too. And so therefore, like, who are we to hold on to things just like we were, right? Just like, whatever we did, lying, cheating, whatever. Like, so we can't hold on to that. And I know it's definitely a difficult situation because you lost your loved one or things of that nature. So, but that's beautiful. I haven't heard that testimony, but check out because there's plenty of people that have to do that.
Exactly. And I just want to say this, and I'm not even saying, and I don't think that she's saying, although she definitely, I would say, is against the death penalty, but I don't even think that she's saying that there shouldn't be consequences, that there shouldn't be justice, because look at what happened on the cross. God, Jesus didn't just release the prisoners. They died, but he forgave them and they went to heaven. So, again,
Yeah,
I'm
there's
not,
definitely consequences.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
there can be consequences, but the forgiveness in her heart made her go down a bad road herself. And when she found God, she realized that she was holding on just to all that resentment and anger, which God wanted her to let go of. And she did. Um, and she was even, and she told the man that she forgave him. And
Wow.
she even spent some time with him before the execution. So,
Wow.
yeah. So I know that there have been times just in my own life where I've held on to some kind of resentment or anger towards someone, and they're just living their life. They don't even know, that I'm upset or anything. And all this is clogging up my system. And so
That's
you
what they
gotta let
say.
that go. Yeah. I love talking about forgiveness
Yeah.
because, yeah, generally, it's more helpful to you. And I don't want to be selfish about it, but yeah, you need to let that stuff go.
Right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's usually what they say that, it's like taking a poison and expecting the other person to be hurt by it. But
Yeah,
it's really
that's
just
right.
only affecting you.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, again, more power to that lady. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could have done it. I'm
you
with you
know,
on that.
I will forget, see, this is ways that I be wondering sometimes. I'm like, okay, just because I forgive you don't mean do I have to go back and tell the person that, or do I just forgive them and let them
No,
be?
you don't
Like,
have to.
I
She don't
have
have
those
to.
debates.
But she felt God telling her to do that. So she did it. Again,
Yeah.
she was obedient. She felt him
Mhm.
calling her, you need to write a letter to that man. And she
Mm.
did, and then that ended up in a, being able to actually meet face to face and forgive.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Listen, well, look, it can be done. So whatever you need
Mhm.
to forgive somebody for, look, this is your
Yeah. Yeah.
reminder.
Yeah, exactly. And
Let
so,
you
yeah, so
know.
that's what we do on the podcast. It's weekly. You can find it wherever you go for podcasts. And would love to hear from you, everybody out there, on topics that you would like to hear about. So this season that we're in now is season 5, and we were talking about spiritual growth. And so now I'm thinking
Mm.
about the next season. So yeah, let me know. Reach out to Yvette at positivelyjoy.com and let me know what you are thinking about.
Awesome. That sounds good. And so you told us where we could find the books. You told us your journal. Is there any other information you would like to share with us before you go?
Well, you can generally find me on Instagram. I am on Facebook, but I just had an issue with Facebook. They kicked me off saying that I violated community standards. What, talking
Oh,
about God? I don't know how else I could have done it. And so I am rebuilding. I mean, I had thousands of friends and followers all gone. So I'm rebuilding
mm,
on Facebook, but you can find me probably more often on Instagram. And
mm,
I am, and again, these things happen for reasons, I think. And so I'm spending a little bit more time, not so much on Facebook, and spending a little bit more time on creating video. And I have a YouTube channel that I've kind of let sit. So
mm.
now this is an opportunity for me to do there. So again, I am kind of a make lemonade out of lemons type of person, but I believe these things happen, and when they
Yes.
happen, look for opportunities. And so again, I am on social media. You can find me at either Positively Joy Podcast or Yvette B. Walker.
Awesome. Well, listen, ma'am, I really truly appreciate you taking out the time. You're welcome back anytime as well. And yeah, check out Miss Yvette and her endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching the GSL Talk Show, and thank you to Miss Yvette for joining us tonight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and check out Miss Yvette's books, journals, and the rest of her endeavors. Have a good night.